So you just bought your first flute and you're all ready to play it, and there's just a couple little problems. One, you don't know how to put it together. And two, you don't know how to take it apart necessarily. So we're going to talk about that today. First thing you want to do, so you have your flute case, right? You want to figure out which side's the top and which side's the bottom. Simply because if you were to open it up this way, with the wrong way, then the entire flute's going to come out, and that's just going to be a big mess. So one way to figure out which side's the top, the company of where you bought the flute, they may have their logo like this flute does, but they may not. So if they don't, what you want to do then, you want to look at the latches. The latches will flip, if they're like this, they'll flip up, but not all latches are like this. Some of them you have to push to the side, and the mechanism is going to be on the top. And so, and obviously being careful the whole time, because your flute may even be different than that. Once you figure out which side's the top, it's good to put a sticker or something on the top side, because then one, you know that it's your flute, and two, you'll always be able to tell the top from the bottom, and you don't have to take any time to be like, okay, is this the top, is this the bottom? So now that you've figured out which side's the top and which side's the bottom, we're going to go ahead and open it. And so make sure that you open both latches and reveal the pretty inside. Of course, I have a lot of junk and stuff, my cloths, but your flute, and don't ever hold it up to show it to someone like this. And I'm just holding this at a very low angle. But your flute will look something like this. And as you can see, I'm still even holding all of the pieces in place. Your flute may not be put in exactly the same way as mine, so it's always good to take a picture of what your flute looks like before you put it together. That way when you go back, if you're not sure, does it go in this direction, or do I have it opposite, you can go back in the picture and you can look, and it'll be easy enough to find. So let's start with learning what all of the pieces are. Your first piece, you have the head joint. This is the lip plate, and it's where you're going to put your mouth when you go to play. And we'll talk about playing it actually in a different video. And so this is the hole, obviously, where you're going to breathe in the air. And this is the end. It can move when you need to tune the entire flute. Maybe you're really, really sharp or really, really flat. It could be because this isn't quite right. And so talk to your band director, talk to your private instructor, and they'll be able to help you out. The next piece we're going to go on to, it's the body of the flute. You never want to grab any of these parts where there's a rod, like this rod that goes down the whole flute, or the keys. Don't ever grab the flute by the keys. As you can see, I'm going to hold it by what we call the barrel, because clarinets have a barrel too, and they actually have to attach their barrel to the rest of the clarinet. So as you can see, we have all these different keys. Your fingers don't go on every key, and we'll talk about that too in another video. My flute is an advanced flute, which means there's some features on it that you can be like, that flute does not look like mine. Most of the flutes will have the covers on their keys, like these two keys, like this key over here, and so you won't have these holes. So whenever I play, sometimes I have to make sure that I'm covering the holes, otherwise it'll be kind of funky and the sound won't come out. So you have all your keys here. You have to be careful of this key. It's the A flat key. It sticks out a little bit from the flute. I don't know if you can see that. There, you can see it. It sticks out a little bit, so just be careful about that. You don't want it to bend or anything, because then it won't play properly. So we'll go ahead and put the body back in the case, and then we'll talk about the last part, which is the foot joint. Again, mine is an advanced model, and so I have 3 keys on this side. Yours will most likely only have 2, and so it may not be quite as thick either. This is how you'll play all the different keys right here, and like I said, we'll talk about that in another video. You also have a key on the back side. And just like with the body, you don't want to grab by the rod or grab by any of the keys. So, you can hold it pretty steadily. You just may only feel like you have an inch, and so it may not feel very sturdy. So let's go ahead and learn how to put it together. I usually grab the foot joint in the right hand, and then the body in the left hand. And you may switch this around if you're left-handed or whatever's most comfortable for you. When you put it together, make sure that you go on straight, like this. Don't come up at an angle to put it on, because that'll work, but this is a metal flute, and so metal is malleable, so it'll start to bend to that position. And you don't want that, because then the flute won't work right. So you put it on, and once you get it on securely, we'll go ahead and use a twisting motion to get it on to the rest of the way. This one you want to put in all the way tight. And you want to line up, I'll pull this up closer to you again. You see this rod running down the flute? You're going to line up the ball, the very end of the rod, with the center of what we call the E-flat key. So it's the key that works the back side. It works this key. You can also look at the rod on the foot joint and line it up with the last key on the flute, on the body. So that's two places that you can kind of look for lining it up. Really go off of the E-flat key, because that'll make it more comfortable when you actually go to play it. Next, you're going to take the head joint. You have your body with the flute. And the same thing applies. You want to line it up straight. And then you can either just kind of shove it on. I usually do a twisting motion because it makes me feel more comfortable. And now you always want to be sure, whenever you do this, that you can leave about 1/4 of an inch or so of the head joint out of the flute, because otherwise it won't be in tune with the rest of the band, or it won't be as likely. So let me show you it pushed all the way in. So that's pushed all the way in. You don't see any marks. It looks very pretty. And so when you want it pushed out like that 1/4 of an inch, because then that'll make the flute better in tune with the rest of the band. The next step that you want to do is you want to line up the lip plate and the hole with the main portion of the keys of the flute. And so I will usually look at I'll look at from the hole, and let's see, I'll get the keys straight, and then I'll see where my hole is. And right now you can see, like, I don't know if you can see it or not. My keys are straight, but the hole isn't. So in this case, I need to kind of go up. Now there's always like a logo. There's a logo or maybe a number on the back. I had a flute once that did that. That you might be able to help line you up. It'll help you line it up. This process may seem to take a while. Looks like I'm doing pretty good. It may take you a while at first, but then you'll get used to it and you'll be able to more easily see it. So let's see, I'm looking at it like this. Yeah, it looks pretty good. I might go just a little bit one way. And so then you're all ready to play. And so you might have been playing for 5-10 minutes, however long you've been playing, and now it's time to take it apart. As you're taking apart the flute, you want to swab the flute to get all the liquid, all the moisture out of it, because you don't want that sitting in the flute. So, in your flute cases, you'll have a cleaning rod. It'll look something like this. It'll have a hole, like a needle, and the whole thing just look like a giant sewing needle. And if you have one of these, it's kind of fuzzy, don't use it. It doesn't collect the moisture as well, and it'll just hold on to it more. And so a really good kind of cloth, cotton, is really good because it's nice and thin. The problem with this piece of cotton that I had, when I put a little bit through the eye, and then go over the eye, I still have this much of my cleaning rod showing. You don't want that, because then it'll kind of get banged around inside the flute. So, I mean, this is just a part of an old t-shirt. I mean, it works for the littler pieces, but it's good to have something about 12 inches long. You know, I have a polishing cloth in mine that works pretty well. The only problem is that it's a little bit thicker than the cotton t-shirt, and so it doesn't go through the big body of the flute as easily. And I'll demonstrate that in a moment. So you're going to take one corner of your cloth. You're going to string it through. You just want about 1 inch or so. Make it a little kind of flag. And then the rest of the part, you want to cover the tip, because you know your rod might be metal, mine's plastic, but you don't want that to kind of bang up against the flute. And so you're going to wrap the cloth around the rod, and then you are all set to swab. Now you make sure your rod's all covered. So we'll start. Bring our flute back. You'll start with your foot joint with the same twisting motion to get it off. Don't worry about getting it off at an angle. You're going to take the tip. You're going to take the tip, and it doesn't matter if you go in, you know, one way versus the other. And you're just going to get it in there. You can kind of, I usually twist mine around. Oh, do I have it in back? No, I have it in right. So you just kind of twist it around, pushing forward, and it'll start to come out the edge. But mine's getting harder to push through the flute. And that means that, you know, my cloth, it's just that thick that, you know, I get all of this cloth in there. And so you don't want to keep pushing through like when you can't, because then your rod will get stuck. And so instead of continuing to push further through the flute, first you need to get a thinner cleaning cloth, and then just kind of carefully bring it back out. And always making sure that you put the flute in the same way that's in your picture, or the same way that it came out. It's not going to fit, it's not going to close very well if you do it the other way. So then you're going to take your body apart from the flute, or body apart from the head joint. And the same idea is going to hold. It doesn't matter which way you go in. I usually go in from the bottom, but it doesn't matter. So yeah, doing that same twisting motion. And yep, mine's starting to get stuck now. You can kind of see that it's in there. Next to these holes, you can see this is about as far as it goes. If you look, I still got plenty of space to go. I'm not going to force the cleaning rod in through there. So like I said, I need to get my own cleaning cloth that's thinner, so I can do this, but a temporary solution is to go in the other way and find that spot, make sure that I swab the whole thing. Okay, and so you're going to want to put the body back in the way it came. Usually if you memorize where the A flat key, if it's facing you, it usually does. Then that's where how you put your flute in. The keys will usually face up. I have not seen a flute where the keys are down into the case. The head joint, you know, you have the stopper in here, so it doesn't quite swab the same way. You have to be a little bit more careful. So you go ahead and put the swab in, and you're swabbing, and then you get to a point, so you can kind of see where my cleaning cloth is. Yeah, you don't want to go too much past this, too much past the lip hole. Do enough that you can get in there, but you don't want to do that because you can see that there's a cork in there, and you don't want to hit the cork. So after you've swabbed your flute, you've put it away successfully, and take the cleaning rod out of the flute. Go ahead and put, I put mine backwards, my cleaning rod. And you put your cleaning cloth away. You are all set. Just make sure that you close the lid and make sure that you always latch it. You always kind of want to test, you know, if you pull it up, and then you're all set to go. So now you know you've learned how to put the flute together, how to put it away, and just some daily proper care. Always swab your flute after you play it. Otherwise it can get kind of gross. Never touch the rods, and never touch the keys, except for when you're playing them, of course.